so often having a partner in the house does not mean that you have somebody who's equally sharing in the child rearing with you. And I think that's why we're seeing the birth rate decline. We're seeing the marriage rates decline. We're seeing women choosing to be single moms from birth because if I was going to do all the work anyway, why do I have
Right.
to have someone else here if I don't have someone in my life already? Why do I have to wait for this relationship that may never show up if I know I have the capacity to mother?
Cause it's hard to be a person with a body these days when bonkers TikTok diets are all the rage. And why are the seats so damn small on the airplane? Cause it's hard to be a person with a body these days.
You are listening to Burnt Toast. I'm Virginia Soul-Smith, and today my conversation is with Jamilah Lemieux. Jamilah is an award-winning writer, cultural critic, and leading voice in digital feminism, known for shaping online conversations around race, gender, and relationships. She writes the Care and Feeding Parenting Advice column for Slate, and her work has appeared in outlets like the Los Angeles Times, Vanity Fair, and the Washington Post. She has also been featured in numerous documentaries and news programs, including Surviving R. Kelly and Secrets of Playboy. She is the author of the brand new book, Black Single Mother, which is hailed as one of the most important books of the young century. I've been a fan of Jamilah's from the Slate Care and Feeding Parenting podcast, where she was a longtime co-host. We've chatted before on her podcast, and it was a real treat to have her on today. She joins me to chat about Black Single Mother, and we get into a lot of related issues. We get into who gets to call themselves a single mom, a topic I know a lot of folks listening have very strong opinions about. The kind of social life co-parenting lets you have, the importance of friend dates, a lot about bodies, and is dating a diet, ? And paid subscribers, stay tuned for Indulgence Gospel, our new bonus segment where Corinne will hop on to debrief with me about my conversation with Jamilah. If you're not a paid subscriber, you can join us by clicking the link in your episode description or go to burnttoastpodcast.com. Here's Jamilah. Big congratulations on your debut memoir. Your book, Black Single Mother, is out now. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the book and what drove you to write it?
Black Single Mother is a lot of things in one book. It's part memoir, it's part cultural critique and history of how Black single motherhood has been regarded in the United States, how it's been depicted by popular culture and the media and politicians. And I talk about what I came to learn growing up as a child of a single mother who vowed to never become a single mother and then did exactly that. And the, somewhat unique, somewhat familiar journey that I've had as a single mom and co-parent. I also speak to 21 other Black single moms about their experiences, a group that's, diverse in terms of age and class and location. Ultimately, it is a plea for the world to reconsider their perceptions of Black single mothers and to commit themselves to supporting us because we are an essential group of people to the foundation of this country.
Literally holding whole communities together a lot of the time. I loved the essay collection at the end because, as you said, it was such a diverse range of experiences, really helped combat the stereotypes that we all encounter about who is a Black single mother. It also got me thinking a lot about the politics of that term, single mother, and who gets to claim it. You write about this really well throughout the book about pushback you even received about calling yourself a single mom when you have a co-parent. I struggle similarly. I've been divorced for about 3 years now. I do have a really active co-parent, but when it's me and the kids in the house, there's only one parent getting bedtime done. Yep. There's only one parent figuring out, who's getting where in an afternoon and all of that kind of stuff. So I struggle with do I say single mom? Do I not? Who do you think gets to call themselves a single mother? And why is this so sticky?
I think that a single mother is a mom who is not in a romantic relationship with a co-parent, who is not in the house with a co-parent, right? Those are the two big things that make one a single mom, that you are parenting as a single person. And there's a spectrum of experiences that describe single motherhood. You can be, a 50-50 custody parent. You can have your mother living in the house providing support. But ultimately, the primary responsibility for the care of your child or children when they're in your care falls on you. So you may have a partner, but they're not in the home with you raising your child. You may have a co-parent, but they're not your partner. It's interesting because there's always been such stigma attached with single motherhood, especially for Black women, but really for women of all groups, varying in a lot of ways depending on class. Class can both protect you, but also make you particularly vulnerable to being, looked down upon for it. I think there's two schools of thought that have made this a controversial topic. I actually just wrote an article that will be running for a big outlet soon about who gets to call themselves a single mother. I think that there are people who are having the experience of solo parenting, as mothers who do not have a co-parent and may not have a village or a support system. And so when they see somebody who does have those things refer to themselves as a single mother, it doesn't seem fair, and I
Yeah,
understand that and
totally.
I'm empathetic to that. But, my response to that is also that single mother never meant synonymous with struggle or difficulty,
Mm,
and there are people who want it to mean that because they feel that women in that position should be punished. There were people who wanted to be synonymous with struggle because they want to scare women out of leaving their husbands or not having one in the first place, right? This idea that if you are a part of this group of people, you're going to be looked down upon, you're going to struggle. And that's just not, an honest accounting of what it looks and feels like to be a single mom. Again, there's a range of experiences. There are people who, feel like, hey, I am doing it all alone. It's not fair for you to call yourself that. I think there are other people that want to deny how challenging it is to be a co-parenting mom,
mm,
because they feel that somehow calling yourself that takes away from the father, and that we must affirm. And again, like this, we're being defined by our relationship to a man, one way or the other. And so if
yes.
he's around, like,
Yes.
then you don't have the right to call yourself. How dare you disparage his parenting? And there's so many women who, maybe this is the third group of thought, don't want to have the stigma, don't want the shame that comes with the title. And so if they have a co-parent, they don't want to be called a single mom. They want to feel like they're in a better, different class of mothers than single moms.
Mm,
But I've talked to some of these women about these co-parents, and the dad has the kid every other weekend, or
yeah,
on
that's not
holidays. That's
co-parenting.
not co-parenting. You're active,
No,
you're present, but you are not doing the hands-on labor of raising
right.
your children.
Let
So,
alone any of the mental load.
yeah.
That's really interesting. So there's almost an argument you're saying for those of us who are single mothers with privilege, with
Mhm.
joint custody privilege, co-parenting privilege, in naming that
Yeah.
privilege in order to not overstep in terms of what others are experiencing. But there's also power in us claiming the term and
Mhm.
saying, yeah, I'm a proud single mom, because that helps reduce the stigma and it helps push back against this idea that, oh, you wouldn't ever want to be associated with that.
Absolutely. I'm so aware that I'm privileged in a number of ways as a single mom. Even as a Black single mom, I'm middle classy ish, depending on the year. And I'm light
Mhm.
complexioned. I'm not considered substantially overweight. I am college trained. I have a co parent. I'm in good health. So, like, certain things are much easier for me than they are for other single moms. And I don't want to disparage that, but I do think it's important that we share in the complicated truth of this experience. But that's also part of the reason why I interviewed the 21 moms at the end of my book, because I wanted to be clear to, like, yes, I have these certain privileges, and there are a handful of, those
Mhm.
moms, some of them have various privileges too. But I wanted to show just how diverse the Black single mom experience can be.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of that co-parenting privilege. In the book, you write a lot about how co-parenting is really what enables you to have a social life.
Mhm.
Joint custody does create these opportunities, dating in particular. I'm in a new relationship now, and it makes space for that. What does having a co-parent make room for in your life?
Oh, so much. I've been co-parenting my daughter's entire life. And so when that shifted, when she was a baby, her father would come to the house and sit with her for a few hours, and then at 6 months, maybe a little earlier than 6 months, he was able to take her over to his house for a few hours. And then we graduated to a couple of nights a week. And so for the first 6 years of her life, she was generally with her dad at least 2 nights a week and more based on my needs. And at the time, I traveled a lot for work. I had a demanding job. I had events after work and things. I'm very blessed that our schedule has always largely constructed around mine. And so now we divide her time, about 50-50. And so she goes back and forth over the course of the week. Like most people tend to do a 1 week on or 3 days here, 4 days there. But like Naima's with me generally, Sunday, Monday, every other Tuesday, Thursday. We kind of do like that. And I've dabbled in stand-up comedy, which has been really
So
fun.
cool.
I haven't performed in a while, but
Yeah.
I've had fun with that. And I've dated. And I've made friends. I'm active with my sorority. I wrote a book. Like her entire life, I felt it was so important that she saw me having a life of my own. It was as important for her to see it as it was for me to experience it. And I'm very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for the collaboration that her dad and stepmom and I have that have allowed me to have a life beyond mothering. And it also makes the quality of the time we have together so good. And my daughter doesn't play.
Yes,
It's
I
funny,
agree.
like, for the most part, like if I'm out of town, she wants that day back. Like, okay, so what extra day are we doing next week to make up for you being gone? From time to time, she'll just say, hey, I need an extra night with my mom. I just really want to come to your house today. And, almost always, unless I have some sort of serious obligation, I'm able to make that happen for her.
I always say to people, like, you think 50% custody is like you're going to lose 50% of their childhood, but you're still a mom 100% of the time. Like your connection to your kid doesn't diminish in any way. And if anything, I feel like I now have much more present connected time with my kids because when they're with me, I'm able to clear the rest of my life to the side and really focus on them and then know that I get that time to be non-mom Virginia when they're not with me. And it's so interesting. It's honestly something I really wish people who had their kids 100% of the time got to do more often.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of married parents, particularly married mothers who would kill to have the kind of arrangement that we have, because so often having a partner in the house does not mean that you have somebody who's equally sharing in the child rearing with you. And I think that's why we're seeing the birth rate decline. We're seeing the marriage rates decline. We're seeing women choosing to be single moms from birth because if I was going to do all the work anyway, why do I have to have someone else here if I don't have someone in my life already? Why do I have to wait for this relationship that may never show up if I know I have the capacity to mother?
I mean, I think you said in the book, there's a lot of women who, whether they know it or not, are married single mothers. And that's a much lonelier way to go about it, I think, and a much harder way to go about it.
I think so, too.
Yeah. Another piece of the story in the book is your big move from New York City to Los Angeles. Really hard transition. You had a great community in New York, getting to LA. Obviously, you're starting over from scratch. And had Naima. It's something you talked about a lot on the Slate podcast over the years, too, kind of struggling to make friends in LA. And it sounds like that's really shifted and that you have a real community there now. I would love to just hear how you found your mom community. Like, how do you find friends in general, but also like other moms that you can really bond with over these specific challenges?
So I will say this. I still don't have much of a mom community here. But I have a community. And what made that easy for me is that I'm a member of a sorority. I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha, which is the oldest Greek-lettered organization for Black women. And I joined a chapter 2.5 years ago. I'd been here for a few years. I've been here since October 2019. Maybe it was late 2023, early 2024. I joined a chapter. And through that chapter, I made a bestie. And we just very quickly, fell into a pattern of hanging out. And one of the best things that we do for each other that I recommend to people all the time, we both have ADHD. We both kind of struggle with executive function at times. And so, she's doing this for me literally this week because I'm in the process of a across-town move. We'll just go to each other's houses and keep one another company while the home renter gets things done. So it's like I just have so much laundry because I know by myself I will leave.
Yeah.
I will walk out.
Yeah.
I will come up with something else to do. I'll read a book. I'll watch a TV show. But most often I'll leave. And so I'm like, I need somebody to stay here with me. And so that's been wonderful. And then there was another girl who I casually knew from New York, and we went out to brunch a couple of times, which is important. Like, you have to go on friend dates. If you're looking for
You
friends,
do.
you
You
have
really
to
do.
go on friend dates. And we went on a couple of friend dates, had a nice time. And then the two of them, the two women I'd been hanging out with, met and connected the dots to me. And like, we decided to spend my birthday together. I think that was our first outing. And we've just been
Aw,
having a blast. Like, they are my crew. And I'll just say my love life is going really well. Like,
I love
really,
hearing
really
that.
well. So
I love hearing that, Jamila.
yeah.
That's awesome. And I was asking about mom community, but it's so true that like really what matters is the friendship that you can show up and support each other.
Yeah.
Like I love that helping each other get shit done. And I think there's actually a lot of benefits to our kids for us to be friends with people who don't have
Yep.
kids and they're seeing different types of lives and like, having kids is optional.
And
Always like kind of demonstrating that to them too.
because I had such a rich village in New York, there were always adults around my child, like there were aunties and uncles and people, parties and things where there were these grown-ups. And like in my childhood, there were my parents, there was, an aunt that I saw pretty regularly, maybe a couple of friends, parents, and that was about it, aside from teachers and service people. I didn't have like, meaningful relationships with grown-ups outside of my immediate family. And my daughter has people around her who love her. In New York, some of them had children. Out here, the people we're around most don't. But I think it's really gratifying to them too, to be in community with a child. She's funny, she's
Absolutely.
witty, she's interesting. One of the things we do that's been a lifesaver for me, and we started this almost a year ago, once a month, my two besties, my daughter, and one of my daughter's besties go out to dinner. And we call
Oh,
it girl dinner.
I heard you talk about this.
Yes.
I want to do
You
this
should
so
do
badly.
this.
It's genius.
You should do this. We call it girl dinner, and like, even though, yes, my daughter has her mom there, but the other young lady doesn't. And, I'm not a regular mom, I'm a cool mom. I think it's creating this heightened sense of community for all of us, and it just gives us time. Like, the girls keep us young. They're teaching us the trends and telling us all the tea and, talking openly about things that are going on in school and in their lives.
Yeah.
One thing I tell my daughter, and I have a 16-year-old cousin who recently lost her mother, and I tell the two of them all the time, like, I'm going to make sure you girls know about boys. Because that was not an education I got from my parents. My mother taught me about HIV, and my father taught me about chivalry, and everything else I just had to learn on my own.
Skipping over a few things.
Yeah, those were the headlines. Like, make sure he opens the door for you and wears a condom. And that was essentially all I knew about men.
That's hilarious. Yeah. I love too when my older daughter is the same age as Naima, and I love now that we're on this precipice of the teenage years, them having close relationships with other adults feels like such a good safety plan. Like, I'm pretty open with my kid. We have a lot we can talk about, but there's gonna be a time where there's something you don't want to talk to your mom about. And I want there to be other people in your community that are safe adults. And so I use my sister for that a lot, but I'm going to work on the girl dinner idea. I think that's genius.
I do that with my sister too. Like, my two sisters. Like, I make sure my daughter knows, like, you have other people. You can ask them for $20 sometimes too. That would be nice. But also, like, if you need to talk to an adult and you can't talk to your dad or your stepmom or me, like, you have options.
It's so important. Okay, so another big piece of the book I want to make sure we talk about is the way you write about your struggles with your body. I think we're still encountering this misconception that Black women don't feel the same pressure to be thin, that eating disorders are just like this skinny white girl problem. Can you please talk about why that is such a myth? It's clear for you that the pressure to be thin is very wrapped up in the pressure and stigma around Black single motherhood. Like, these things are quite tangled together.
Absolutely. Every stage of my life, I felt pressure to, look a certain way. And when I was younger, the word I would have used to describe that would have been thin. And at this stage of life, it's thick, but not too thick. So we want the boobs big, we want the butt big, but everything else needs to be within a certain size. And I've dealt with disordered eating, including bulimia for many, many years. I have not dealt with bulimia in quite a while. But just, diet drugs and extreme dieting. I think about when I was in high school and I had braces and I had to go to the dentist every month. And every month I waited for the day that he was going to point out that I was making myself vomit. I was like, some dentist, some doctor, somebody's going to out me one day. Every trip to the doctor, every trip to the dentist was a frightening. And none of them ever, no doctor, no dentist. I've had so much dental work done over the years that I think can be attributed to the years of purging. No one ever said a thing.
They never clocked it.
No one ever clocked it.
Because they didn't assume someone like you would be doing that.
And I think part of it also was we don't talk about binge eating disorder, period. When we talk about eating disorders, people are thinking of bulimia and anorexia. They're not thinking body dysmorphia. They're not thinking of how anorexia can look, right? Because there's a form of anorexia that shows up in people who are not thin, where they had the same.
Much more common form.
Yes, right. Much more common, right? It's like.
Much more common, yeah.
Yes, but we don't recognize it, So we hear them talking about, not eating or having these weird rules around food. And we don't, clock it to mean something. It's either like, are you big? Because that's a problem. Or are you not big? So I'm assuming everything is okay, And so it's interesting. I think you'll be proud of me. So I put on what most people would consider a significant amount of weight. And I got on the shot and lost it and got down smaller than I wanted to be. I didn't like how it looked. And I realized I wasn't really mad at how it looked before. The weight loss was in anticipation of my book tour. And then when I looked up and it was time for the book tour, I had put on basically all of the weight again. But this time around, it just feels different.
I mean, it's the eternal quest that we can never achieve.
Yes.
But yeah.
The good thing is that I do have a lot of clothes. There's a weight range that I'm generally in. Luckily, I seem to have enough stuff to accommodate where I'm at right now without looking crazy. And I'm just approaching it differently this time. I'm feeling good about that. So not only am I a Black single mom, I went to Howard University. It's a very prestigious institution where there are all these high achieving people. And, a number of them got married and did things the quote unquote right way, starting back when we were in our 20s. So I'm going to reunions and I'm the only single mom, or I'm one of few single moms for a long time. There's a lot of single moms now. There's a lot of newly single moms now.
I was going to say, once everyone gets close to 40, the divorces start happening.
Divorces
so
are, the number of people who've come to book events so far, I'm like, girl, you too, yes. So, but I was the first, you know what I mean? And so I always felt like, as a single mother, I had to look good. I had to look fit. I had to be desirable to men. I never liked the idea of looking like a mom, period. And I'm realizing that
why aren't we allowed to like that? It's so
I think also
that pushback.
What looking like a mom has looked like in our heads and in popular culture for so long was just so narrow. It was very conservative, very frumpy, unconcerned with appearance, So it's you don't have to be glamorous. You don't have to be, a sneakerhead, but have something that hopefully represents you presenting yourself in a way that makes you feel joy. So if mom jeans, quote unquote, and a turtleneck make you feel good, not only should you wear that, you're going to show up differently than the mom who has that on because she feels that at 40, I have to dress this way.
I'm not allowed to express myself anymore.
Or I don't have time or resources to invest in my appearance the way that I'd like to. I remember my mom telling me, and the way I dress has always been a point of contention between my parents and I, because I didn't really wear tight clothes when I was younger because I felt so insecure about my body, but I liked short things, and I liked low cut things. At this stage of life, it's been more so less short, more tight, or see-through. I wore a sheer lace dress to a birthday party a few months ago. It's on my Instagram.
Oh, cute.
And this was right when I noticed how much weight I put on, that I have on a see-through dress. I had on a bikini.
You wore the dress?
Yeah, I had a bikini under it and a sheer see-through dress. And I felt so good. I got so many compliments. And my parents were my dad didn't say anything, but my mother and my older sister were so horrified. And I think a lot of it has to do with my age, and what I do for a living and just kind of where I am at this stage of life. I'm I'm always going to be this girl, like it
Yeah.
may look
Yeah.
different at 50 than it does at 40, but I've always had a little bit of an exhibitionist, a cheeky
Totally.
kind of hoochie mama approach to clothes in a way. I like that. And I'm really grateful that our generation of moms, we saw it in celebrities, right? Like,
Mhm.
I just did the Playboy interview with Nia Long, and like she's 55 and she's always been fabulous and glamorous and sexy and single mom of two, right? But like that's a TV person, I just feel like the millennial moms are just showing up in our authentic selves in our motherhood in ways that
Yeah,
previous
more
generations.
unapologetically.
Yeah.
I agree. And sometimes my kids will like if I'm in a bikini or wearing something, my kids will be like mildly scandalized,
Yeah.
like, "Mom, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "No, this is good for you.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a body. It's good for you to
Yeah.
see an over 40 fat body, like taking up the space, wearing, whatever I feel like wearing. Like, you don't get to police me." My tween did ask me once if my crop top was the sign of a midlife crisis. And, we're not over that. But
Yeah.
anyway, they're savage
Yeah.
at this age.
Did you wear a crop top at 22?
No,
Me neither.
no.
Me neither. And that's
I wouldn't have done it at
I
22.
wouldn't have worn a bikini at 22. I wouldn't have worn a crop top. And so, like, I didn't wear booty shorts back then.
I'm trying to remember. I think I did wear bikinis, but with far more angst and like planning and care than I do now.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, I'm going in the pool. I'm
Yeah,
a body in the
just
pool.
a body in the
This is
pool.
what I'm wearing. I
Yeah.
want to be able to pee, and one pieces are hard to pee in. I give way fewer fucks now.
Yes.
And I love for them to see that, even if it makes them uncomfortable sometimes. That's fine. Comfortable with embarrassing them that way.
Question for you. With having a daughter the same age as Naima is now wanting to wear things that are similar to what I wear. And it's like, oh, and like I've always let her wear short shorts, and she's had two pieces before, but now that she has a different body and she's 5'4", and it's kind of like, how are you navigating like that desire to like, I want to protect you from all the ick and the ill and the yuck of men and judgment that you've watched me experience because I have presented myself in a certain way, and that grandma doesn't like my clothes, but I don't want to be a hypocrite.
It's hard. I really firmly feel that if we're teaching our girls body autonomy, we're teaching our girls body autonomy. And they get to make those choices. And I do think there's a difference between providing information and shaming.
Yeah.
So, I might say like, hey, are you comfortable? Your bra straps are visible. Do you care if someone notices? How would that make you feel? And if she's like, whatever, I'm like, great, go forth,
I love it.
And I've done that since she was little. Like both my kids in like early elementary school thought tights were pants and didn't always want to wear a skirt on top because they were like, no, these are glittery and I want to show the And I was like, go to school, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And there's this whole thing going on in our middle school right now, actually, where there's been a lot of dress coding. And of course, it's only girls getting dress coded. There's hardly anything in the dress code that even applies to boys. And the principal just gave a whole talk where she talked about like no tank tops and how long sleeves should be and like staring down all the girls. And I was really proud of this group of kids because they are like, this is sexist.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. They're organizing a petition about it.
Nice.
They're going to write about it for the school paper. And I'm like, go forth. Yes, like address that. And so I think that's helping them understand, like dealing with it in that way, like sort of as a political issue, is helping them understand that, it's not their job to cover up their bodies.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to say there's certain norms for dressing appropriately at school, but that needs to be accompanied with what education are you giving the boys so they're not objectifying these girls. So they're not learning that just because you can see a girl's bra strap means you have the right to say something and behave in a certain way around it. And until the school has that level of education in place for the boys, I don't care what my daughter wears.
Yeah.
Because I'll protect her right to do it.
Yeah.
But I agree. And I'll also own there, my daughter's a tiny white girl. And I know that that's a different, there's different vulnerabilities that you and I are navigating there.
Yeah.
So I want to own that as well.
I'll say this, I'd slimmed down, I'd stopped eating and slimmed down around 6th grade. But by the time I started high school, I was heavier again. But the boys didn't give me really any trouble, even with the short skirts and the low cut. It wasn't boys, it was grown men. It was always grown men, outside of the school.
Yeah, so what are we doing about that?
What are we doing about that?
Like, I mean, that's my other response to this principle. Like, if you're concerned about how the girls are going to be treated, why are these men anywhere near school?
Yeah.
Why are these men working in your school?
Absolutely. Yeah.
If this is a safety issue, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
I know it's so complicated, though. And I'm always, as a mom, I'm sure we're getting it wrong half the time. But, open communication is all we can really do.
Yeah.
So related sort of to the body stuff and the dating stuff, you talk a lot in the book, and I've heard you talk about it over the years, about the project that you made of dating. Like, you really treated dating like a part-time job, if not a full-time job at times, and, really invested a lot of energy into it. And a lot of that was bound up in wanting to escape the stereotypes, like, quote, do it right. And of course, you interrogate all those ideas beautifully in the book. As I was reading it, I really had this thought, though, that the process of dating for so many of us can feel a lot like the process of dieting. And I was just curious if that resonates with you at all.
Absolutely. You have more control with dieting than you do with dating, right? Because there's not another person short of the other people whose gaze you're considering. I mean, dating can become a lifestyle. There are people who advise you to do that, to treat it as a part-time job, which is what I absolutely did for quite some time. Dating can be healthier than dieting. You know what I mean? There's a version of it, just as there's a way of eating well without eating punitively or being cruel to yourself, So I'm glad that I arrived at a version of dating that allowed me to recognize and appreciate the life that I already had and seek someone out to enhance it, as opposed to, times maybe earlier in my child's life where I feel like my family is incomplete. My home is broken. I need to fix this. But I will say this, and I don't 100% understand exactly why, but throughout my life, at every turn, a partner was always the thing I wanted most, more than career success at times. Once I had Naima, it's not that I ever prioritized dating over her, because she already existed.
No.
This child that I love and I'm obsessed with. But I've always craved, love and companionship and intimacy. I will say my efforts paid off in a way that I could have, in my wildest dreams not have. Well, I guess it wasn't my wildest dreams. I got exactly what I wanted. I got exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
If I had anything to do differently, honestly, even where there were times where it was gotta date, gotta meet people, I enjoyed the process. Did I meet some jerks? Absolutely. Did I have some boring dates? Sure. My only real heartbreak was my breakup with my daughter's father. I've never been yelled at or called out of my name or had someone put their hands on me. I haven't been caught up in a bunch of lying and sneaking around. And, I've dealt with guys who are non-committal. I've had a couple situationships that, the writing was on the wall. This isn't going anywhere, but I'm enjoying the experience. And so I don't want to let that go.
Yeah.
I've walked, at this point, hopefully walked away from, pursuing relationship and dating largely unscathed by it. And I think because my therapist kind of struggled to, she's like, I think you should take a break, from doing this. And I ended up taking a break from her. And when I went back, I was like, well, guess who was right?
It all worked out.
It all worked out.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I was thinking about was the parts of the book where you were really dating from a place of lack.
Yeah.
And I think that's so often what dieting is, right? Where we're thinking if we can achieve this ideal, everything's going to fall into place. And I would argue the reason you're in such a good place now and that you found this partner who's, like you said, your love life's going great now, is because you had worked through a lot of that and you had stopped feeling like your life with Naima is anything other than extraordinary. You have nothing to apologize for and no holes to fill there.
Absolutely.
And I think that's when you can find a relationship that really works, because you're showing up as a whole person and it's like, okay, who's going to come to the table and meet us where we are?
Absolutely. The big thing for me, like I said earlier, once I found female friends in LA, Like there were times, I mentioned this in the book where I was dating not just because I wanted a partner, but I didn't have anything else to do. So like scheduling a
Yeah.
date for Friday and Saturday night meant that I had weekend plans.
And it's weird how dating can feel easier than making friends because we have the apps.
Yes.
Like you can literally like make the formal plans, whereas making friends is like much more like, are you going to run into them? How are you going to exchange numbers? Like it's just such a more diffuse process.
It's so much more complicated. Bumble, I don't know if they still have it, but at one point they had a feature called Bumble BFF where you could connect with friends. And I think I dealt with far more rejection there, than I did with men. The girls I swiped on didn't want to be my friend, like.
Oh, I hate that. Who wouldn't want to be your friend?
Know.
What?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Well, it's just a tremendous book. It gave me so much to think about. I really appreciate everything you put into it. I know it was years of work, both in the motherhood part and the writing part. So thank you for such an amazing contribution.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we wrap up with our better segment, which is a recommendation. So, Jamilah, what is your better right now?
So my butter right now, two things. I stopped eating beef when I was 12. Naima wasn't raised to eat beef. We started eating beef about 1.5 years ago. It has been an incredible journey. I love steak so much. So my butter right now is ribeye steak. Anybody's ribeye steak. I love it. But
love it.
I was in 7-Eleven the other day, and now that I eat beef, I was like, oh, maybe I could have some beef jerky. I haven't had that since I was a kid. But I saw this thing. It's Old Wisconsin Yumbo, spelled like jumbo with a Y. Yumbo honey brown sugar turkey sausage stick. It's only 2 ounces, but it's thick. I love sweet meat. Like, oh my God, anything with honey, brown sugar, maple, like, yes. And so it's like a sausage. It's good like a breakfast sausage, If you like chicken apple sausage or maple sausage, it's the same vibe. And it's turkey. It's a turkey meat stick. And it's just so good. I had like 2.5 of them yesterday. I'm obsessed with them. Like when I bought it, I was like, I should probably buy more, And I was like, but let me see if I...
I think this is the start of something. Yeah.
But I was like, let me see if I like it. And then I was driving. I was like, oh my God. And like the next day I went to like 2 other 7-Elevens and they didn't have it. And it was really dramatic. But yes, it's such a good on-the-go snack too.
I love it. That's such a good rec. I love a good... rec for what to get at a 7-Eleven type of place. Because sometimes you're like so hangry when you go in and you're like, I don't know what's going to work. And so this is a very good recommendation. I will be trying it. Well, my better is another book rec that I think pairs really well with Black Single Mother. I just total happenstance that the book I read right before yours was Kin by Tayari Jones. Which just came out as well this year and is just a phenomenal, beautiful novel. And it's set in like 1950s, 1960s, Jim Crow time, following the story of these 2 Black best friends, very much the story of their moms as well. And it was like so moving to read that and then go into your book. Like I was like, oh yeah, well, it's like sort of backstory and context. And then Jamilah's writing about the modern experience. I think they're a really good pairing. So obviously, everyone needs to go get a copy of Black Single Mother. And if you want to get a copy of Kin too, thank me later.
I have it. I haven't started it yet. I'm very excited. I was a little nervous to share. I think that we had the same pub day or she came out the week before mine. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, that's stressful.
She's such a beast. Yeah. But like, Tiara, she's so kind and gracious with other authors.
My first book shared a pub day with Michelle Obama. It wasn't great for my book. Yeah. But it was understandable. Yeah. Well, there's no media. Well, I want everyone to read Black Single Mother and tell folks where they can find you and how else we can support your work.
Yeah, my website, which does need some updating, is JamilahLemieux.com. But the best way for to-the-minute updates would be my Instagram at Jamilah Lemieux. I publish all my appearances and podcast videos, and my tour dates will all be there.
Oh my gosh, you are going all the places.
Yeah, doing DC and LA and New York for a second time this summer, working on Baltimore, trying to get this book to as many places as possible.
Awesome. All right, well, we will link to that all in the show notes. And thank you so much, Jamilah. This was amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, Corinne joins me for Indulgence Gospel, our new bonus segment. We're going to debrief on Jamilah's interview. This one is for paid subscribers only, so free listeners, be sure to click the link in your episode description or go to burnttoastpodcast.com to join us. Thanks for listening to Burnt Toast. If you enjoyed the conversation, please support our work with a paid subscription. They start at just $5 a month, and you'll keep Burnt Toast in ad and sponsor-free space. You can learn more at burnttoastpodcast.com. And please make sure you're following us for free in your podcast player. Scroll down wherever you're listening, tap the stars, all 5 of them please, and leave us a review. That really helps us grow, and it helps new listeners find conversations like these. The Burnt Toast podcast is hosted by me, Virginia Soul Smith, and Corinne Fay. You can follow me on Instagram and Threads at @V_Soulsmith and on Blue Sky at Virginia Soul Smith. You can follow Corinne on Instagram at SelfieFay, on Blue Sky at Corinne Fay, and on Patreon at Big Undies. This podcast is produced by Kim Baldwin. You can follow Kim at The Blonde Mule on all platforms and subscribe to her newsletter at theblondemule.com. The Burnt Toast logo is by Deanna Lowe. Our theme music is by Faraday. Our video editor is Elizabeth Ayiku, who also runs the Me Little Me Foundation, a virtual food pantry supporting multiply marginalized folks recovering from eating disorders. Learn more and donate at melittlemefoundation.org. And Tommy Heron is our audio engineer. Thanks for listening and supporting anti-diet, body liberation journalism.